Welcome back to the Sports Authority. Local12.com digital editor and columnist Richard Skinner joins us. And you might, I don't know if you want to do some like finger workouts or whatever, because you've got a lot to type.
I'm already tired.
Browns 37, Bengals 34. Maybe a good place to start. Baker Mayfield, the only incompletion he had after the first quarter in this game was the spike to stop the clock. So 21 straight completions for him down the stretch. It was a heavyweight fight between the two quarterbacks, and both defenses couldn't do anything about it.
The funny part was Baker was awful in the first quarter. I mean, he wasn't accurate. He wasn't making good decisions. I know he's playing with a cracked rib, and it felt like they were almost trying to then limit what he could do. And then finally they turned him loose and said, go try to do your thing. And, this is back-to-back weeks that two quarterbacks and kind of divergent guys just absolutely torched this secondary. I mean, if you weren't a fan of either team, right? I mean, that would have been one. If you're flipping it on the 1 o'clock game waiting for your team at 4 o'clock, you're like, it's a pretty fun game to watch.
Red zone darling.
Exactly right. I mean, back and forth, and kind of that old-fashioned shootout. But, man, Baker was, as great as Burrow was, it's hard to believe that you could actually argue that Baker was better, right? And Burrow was great.
Yeah, 297 yards, 5 touchdowns. Burrow, to his credit, 406 yards, first 400-yard passing game for the rookie. 3 touchdowns and about 15 less attempts than he needed in game one, 35 of 47. So, it seemed, and obviously the Bengals didn't win today, but Burrow had struggled, and A.J. Green against the Chargers probably had a touchdown if not for the OPI call, but he struggled kind of laying the hammer down at the very end, and today he got it done. Yeah,
I mean, the Charger one, we can argue that he did finish that drive other than the bad call, but last week he had another opportunity in Indy and throws the interception late, and then today engineers that drive. And, I thought a great telltale sign of how much this guy really does want to win was that scramble where he didn't slide, man. He was making sure he was diving at the sticks to get it. Thought he managed everything well in that drive. The 4th down play was a gutsy call, and it was a well-executed play by Joe and Gio Bernard. And then you look up, and in all kidding aside, I mean, guys I'm sitting around the press box with, I said, I know there's no timeouts. They're at least getting a field goal attempt out of this. I didn't think they could get all the way to the touchdown, but right now this defense can't stop anybody. It can't get pressure on anybody, and this is the kind of performance in back-to-back weeks that usually costs somebody their job, and I hate for that.
Who would that? I mean,
it would be Lou Anarumo, right? I mean, at some point, somebody's going to have the hammer fall. You're a week away from the bye. Remember Marvin Lewis did this with Terrell Austin. The 1 year Terrell Austin was the coordinator in Marvin's last year. He kind of let him go through the bye when all things were not going well. Right. Then one game after the bye decided, okay, now I'm going to pull the plug. I'll do it the rest of the season. And that was kind of it for Marvin too. I know everybody wants to always point the finger at coaches and whatnot. I don't know if this is entirely his fault. It's a dysfunctional 11-man roster on defense, completely dysfunctional.
It just looks like they have made progress this year. I mean, Jesse Bates has come on.
In ways.
Jesse Bates has said, our offense is scoring enough points that we should be expected to win. And it seems as if there have been flashes where this defense has shown improvement this year.
And I don't want to use an excuse, but the depth chart that I can picture back in July when training camp started had Sam Hubbard at one end, out with an injury. Carlos Dunlap at another end, out with being a knucklehead. Geno Atkins, who doesn't seem like he cares any longer. And DJ Reader, who's hurt. I mean,
Trey Waynes.
And then Trey Waynes is one of your corners. Again, this is not an excuse business. And we talked to Lou enough, and he won't make excuses, and nor should he. But at some point, when you're down to guys that just can't get it done, that are just piecemeal and they're there because you got to have somebody play. You're required to play 11. I guess you don't have to if you don't want, but that's kind of the rules of the game. You get 11, they get 11, so you want to line up 11. Bengals 11 just aren't very good on defense. I mean, maybe 2 of them are, but the 11, no, not even close.
Speaking of depth chart issues, we were one play away from the Bengals not having enough offensive linemen to have 5 guys on the field. It ended
not to cut you off. This is the year 2. They're letting you keep an 8th lineman up to have 48. Usually it's been 47, and everybody always keeps 7 guys. Can you imagine if this had been last year where you only keep 7 guys on a game day roster? They would have been hard pressed to game it because there's no way Jonah Williams was coming back. There's no way Bobby Hart was coming back, and there's no way that Trey Hopkins with a concussion was coming back. What were you going to do at that point? Plus, you then had Ethan Carter get hurt when he woke up apparently with a bad shoulder, so you were down an extra tight end. I don't know what they would have done. I really don't.
Hakeem Adeniji getting some snaps at tackle, the 6th-round pick in the draft. I mean, Hakeem Adeniji, Jordan, Billy Price at center, Redmond and Fred Johnson finished on the offensive line today.
Okay.
And they were a stop away from winning the game.
Right. I mean, the first half, Myles Garrett owned Jonah Williams at times and owned Bobby Hart at times. Second half, those guys that you're talking about, would I like to see them play 16 games together? Probably not, but give credit where credit's due. They were part of a second half offense that did not score. They scored points on every drive in the second half. Not all touchdowns, but give them some credit.
Okay, that about does it. Anything else to talk about?
I don't know. About it. You know what? I got a house that's for sale you may want to be interested in. Well, maybe not you, but somebody with a lot of money.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's a bit out of my range just based on the specs that Carlos Dunlap provided. End of the game, Carlos Dunlap looked to get into some sort of altercation with a coach on the sideline. There have been reports on Twitter, unconfirmed, from fans that said it started way before that he had to be separated from Lou Anarumo. The impromptu Instagram live this past Wednesday, yesterday posting the depth chart on the whiteboard where he was listed third. I mean, this is George Costanza driving around the parking lot with the World Series trophy being dragged behind his car, isn't it? I mean, he wants out now.
Correct. This is a complete Terrell Owens, Antonio Brown, you name it, and they all have the same agent. So this seems like it's that playbook
I didn't even think of that.
You know what? Hey, create as much noise as you can because they're going to eventually have to cut you. Excuse me. Have you people met Mike? Have you people met Mike Brown? You think he's going to budge on this cat, Carlos? Good luck, my friend. And there's the disconnect. And that's where look. We can argue about Zach Taylor's ability to coach. Listen, I don't think they want him around either. They've had enough of this, and that's why you keep seeing him get demoted. And they've made subtle hints of, we want guys to come to practice every day and fight for their job every day. Who do you think they're talking about, right? They're talking about certain guys. John Ross probably, certainly Carlos Dunlap, maybe even Geno Atkins. And so they're not trying to roll them under the bus completely. They're thinly veiled things, but you know what they're going through. If they had their druthers, he wouldn't be on this roster. And therein lies the rub of, I get you don't want to give a guy into a guy, but at some point, it's such a detriment. I felt sorry for some of the guys on Zoom having to answer our questions about Carlos Dunlap. That shouldn't be their problem. It's not their problem. It's the front office's problem right now. Go do something about it.
I'm going to ask you your opinion on this question, and I know that it should be just taken as your opinion. Do you feel like, obviously publicly, even on the post game Zooms, Gio Bernard, AJ Green, others spoke out and said we got to keep that in-house, and basically backing Zach Taylor and the team in this. Do you feel that there are people in that locker room right now that back Carlos Dunlap but just aren't vocal about it?
Oh, there's probably a guy or two. I don't think there's very many.
So this team is behind Zach Taylor.
Here's why. Yes, and I believe that. Yes. Here's why. Tape don't lie. I mean, tape doesn't lie. I've watched plenty of snaps of him this year where he just doesn't play hard. I mean, his MO under Mike Zimmer, before Mike Zimmer literally had to put a foot in his rear end to get him to play, was guy's got a great amount of talent, great ability, doesn't play hard every snap. Mike Zimmer got him to play hard for the majority of the snaps. And since that point in time, remember a couple years ago, got extended. Sometimes guys get paid. He's a great guy in the community. I don't want to besmirch any of that. Everybody knows all that part of it. But as a player, sometimes you just go, you know what, I'm in this for the check and I'll play as hard as I need to. Well, if you're a coaching staff trying to set a culture, and I want to vomit at all the culture talk here of late too from Zach Taylor, but if you're trying to do that, you can't have that going on and then reward him by playing him. And I think the same thing for Geno. It's now you see, you guys are specialty pass rushers. You're third down guys at best. And guess what? Hey, they each had 12 snaps today. You know what they got out of 12 snaps today? 0 from both of them.
They got a neutral zone infraction on 3rd and 4 that got the Browns a first down.
That's a good play. That was Carl Lawson, but yes. Yeah.
I think it was Dunlap.
Oh, no, you're right. He did one too. And Carl did one.
Yeah.
Carl did one another time. But yes, Carlos did do one. You're right.
Okay, so let's go over, if they cut him tonight, tomorrow, what happens?
They would, in theory, have to eat the cap if nobody else picks him up. Well, actually, they'd have to eat the cap because somebody's going to pick him up at probably a cheaper price. You could try to deal him, and maybe if it's a team that can kick the tires on him and says, listen, we're a contender, we just need you to come in and be a pass rusher on a winning team, maybe he buys into that. I think you have to do anything you can at this point. If it's moving for a 7th rounder, fine. If it's eventually just say, you know what, let's just cut it and eat it. We've already spent the money anyway. We've already put it towards our cap anyway. Then I think you have to do it. And I think you have to do it tomorrow. I don't think you can wait any longer with this. I think it's festered to the point where, look, he's Khrushchev on the podium, and he has beat his shoe long enough for you to go, I got you. I hear you. Okay, you're right, and you're gone. And I know it's rewarding him, and I hate that too. It's like rewarding your kid for doing the temper tantrum, right? But if you only have 2 kids, you can probably deal with the 2. It's hard to deal with 70, though, if they see one guy getting his way with a temper tantrum. And they're not giving him his way. They're trying to play him some because he still gives you something in theory, right? You still hope he's going to try hard the times he got, but he just isn't doing it. And I say shame on him. Shame on him for this.
You've been around here for a long time. How does the Dunlap situation relate to past aggrieved Bengals?
Corey Dillon was mad at the end, but I think he was mad at everything, just the situation. And listen, Corey always played hard. That's the one thing I can always say for him. Chad Johnson and his act grew tired, but Chad always played hard, and until the very end was pretty productive. T.O., even that last year, you look back at that last year for T.O. as a 37-year-old wide receiver, it was pretty darn good, actually.
Yeah.
He's a goof. I mean, there's no question, and certainly that season was a train
Carl
wreck.
Pickens going back even.
Carl played hard. I mean, Carl got you 15 touchdowns even when he was being a jerk. He'd still get you 15 touchdowns. This is a guy who, again, it's one thing if he's playing 12 snaps and getting 3 sacks, you're going, why isn't he playing more? He played 30 snaps last week and he had 1 quarterback hit. Occasionally, you know what? You can fall into a quarterback hit. That's all he had on the stat sheet.
Yeah.
Go be productive. Prove you can play in this league. If not, I'd say goodbye, and it's addition by subtraction in a major, major way.
Come for the Bengals analysis, stay for the Soviet Union Prime Minister references.
That's right. How about that one? Keller Williams Realty, get on that house now, too.
Richard Skinner, Local12.com digital columnist and editor. He's got a busy week ahead on our website. Thanks, Skinny.
You bet.